To improve the productivity of its mandate crops, ICARDA uses both conventional and modern crop breeding techniques. Barley is grown in dry areas all over the world. Many people think of barley in terms of its industrial uses, but for farmers in the dry areas, it's a subsistence crop used for human food and animal feed. By using local land races, ICARDA has developed drought-tolerant, high-yielding barley cultivars with superior quality straw for animal feed. This is Arta, which gives over 70% higher yield than the local land races from which it was bred. In Ethiopia, ICARDA and the Ethiopian National Programme collaborate with farmers to select and breed from local land races. The resulting lines are locally adapted and can provide stable yield in bad years because of their tolerance to environmental stresses. Barley is an important subsistence crop in South America as well. These farmers are working with ICARDA's Latin American program and with Ecuadorian researchers to develop locally adapted, stable-yielding varieties for the Andes. Meanwhile, barley lines developed by ICARDA in Latin America have found their way to China, where a barley line, locally named as Zhenmai 1, has proved very successful in Shanghai and other Chinese provinces. Lentil is a source of good quality protein for people in Africa, Asia and South America. It's eaten with bread as udis in the Arab world and in the Horn of Africa, and as dal in South Asia. It's an important subsistence and cash crop. Traditional varieties of lentil are low yielding and susceptible to disease. With its national partners, ICARDA has developed improved lentil varieties with better yield potential and improved resistance to pests, diseases and climatic stresses. One of these is Barley Mesur 4, which has been released to farmers in Bangladesh, where it's used in rice-based farming systems. New varieties and improved production practices introduced in northern Sudan helped the country to achieve self-sufficiency in lentils a few years back. Faba bean, often known as poor man's meat, is an important crop in Asia, Africa and Latin America. But traditional varieties of faba bean are also susceptible to diseases and pests such as chocolate spot and the parasitic weed Orobanche. Using the extensive collection of genetic material in its seed bank, ICARDA has been able to identify and distribute faba bean lines with resistance to common diseases to national programs all over the world. Egypt, China, Ethiopia, Iran, Portugal, Spain, Sudan and Syria have all released new varieties for their farmers using ICARDA's breeding lines. Working with national research programs in Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan, ICARDA has developed production technologies that provide 20 to 30% higher yields than those used by farmers. ICARDA's work on durum and bread wheat has helped in the release of a large number of high-yielding, drought-tolerant and disease-resistant cultivars in various countries. Yields have quadrupled in Syria, and substantial increases have been obtained in Egypt, Sudan and Tunisia. In Sudan, heat-tolerant wheat varieties have been successfully grown south of Khartoum, where heat stress prevented wheat production in the past. Kabuli chickpea, like lentil and faba bean, is another good source of protein in the diets of low-income groups in the region. ICARDA has developed cultivars of chickpea that can be grown in winter when there's plenty of moisture. The new cultivars have better resistance to diseases and cold and produce about 60 to 100% more yield than the cultivars traditionally grown in spring. Advanced technology is used in conjunction with conventional breeding. Here, a DNA marker technique is used to characterize the pathogen that causes ascochyta blight, a major disease of chickpea. ICARDA's work with national programs has produced spectacular results. Over 600 varieties of barley, lentil, faba bean, bread wheat, durum wheat, Kabuli chickpea, pea, and forage legumes have been released in a large number of countries worldwide. However, one major constraint to crop improvement is the lack of adequate national seed production systems in the region. Seed is a real food security issue, especially after natural or man-made disasters. ICARDA cooperates with other institutions to compile information on where seeds are stockpiled to meet an emergency. At the same time, ICARDA is also actively strengthening national seed systems. For example, ICARDA is leading a broad-based consortium dedicated to rebuilding agriculture in Afghanistan, following that country's recent war and years of drought. Much needs to be done, but seeds are the key ingredients. The Centre holds in its gene bank some 2,200 accessions of land races and local varieties, collected on various missions to Afghanistan. Useful accessions of these are being multiplied and repatriated. ICARDA assists many national systems to develop their own seed production and distribution systems. These trainees are from Kyrgyzstan. The development of new varieties of crops depends on plant genetic diversity. Wild progenitors, or ancestors of the crops, contain precious genes for resistance to pests, diseases, and extremes of temperature. But these plants are in danger of being lost because of overgrazing and urbanization. They must be collected from the wild or obtained as land races from farmers' fields and preserved. ICARDA, in collaboration with national programs, makes frequent expeditions to known and potential sites of wild species and land races. More than 70 such missions have been conducted in 40 countries. ICARDA's germplasm collection has a priceless 130,000 seed samples, all of them kept in cold storage. More than 30,000 samples are dispatched annually to institutions worldwide for use in breeding. However, plants in the wild are continually evolving, and there's always the frightening prospect that samples deposited in gene banks now may not survive in the future. Because of this, ICARDA works on in situ conservation of agricultural biodiversity, that is, conservation of biodiversity in its natural habitat.